Good morning. This is Father David. Here we are in day 33 of the Winter Pascha. The River Jordan. We sing with the Feast of Theophany and during house blessings the Troparion. Think of that as a theme song. The Troparion of Theophany. When thou, O Lord, wast baptized in the Jordan, the worship of the Trinity was made manifest. And so we connect within the story. The story itself, of course, connects the manifestation of the Trinity, which we talked about yesterday, with this little river in a backwater province of the Roman Empire. Now, of course, state of Israel. You have this river Jordan, which was not only significant for the baptism of Christ, you have it showing up all over the Old Testament. And Theophany is one of those feasts. We read the Old Testament a lot. We pull from it. We say, look at this. Look at where God has brought his people out of. Look at where he's brought them from. The beginning, which I'll admit here, this was at the beginning of this chapter. Father Thomas, for whatever reason, I never noticed this or didn't recall. When Israel left Egypt and they crossed the Red Sea, the waters parted in that iconic imagery, and they passed through the Red Sea. Well, when they got to the Jordan River, that's the border of their land. And in another example of this, the waters parted again, and they passed through the Jordan River. But it's interesting, Father Thomas says, he reminds us that Moses didn't go with them. Moses had, on the way through the wilderness, struck the rock with his staff instead of speaking to the rock, as God had told him, for water to come out and give the Israelites something to drink. And so Father Thomas basically shows us that, Moses is a representation of the old covenant, the law given to Moses. He himself embodies all of that. It would not be able to take the people of God into the land of promise, into that final place. It had to be a Joshua, Moses' successor, Yehoshua. That's a variant. Basically, Jesus, the way that we say Jesus now, is an anglicization of Joshua. If Jesus, came today, his name would probably be Joshua, Josh. And so Joshua was the one to take the people of God across the Jordan. So there's this sense in which it had to happen this way. This is a type of how the old law was insufficient and had to be completed, filled in with the new, with the presence of Christ and the work of Christ. But this is when the first time the Jordan River really figures prominently. Later on, you have Elijah and Elisha, two major prophets in the Old Testament. As they crossed the Jordan River, you have a couple of instances where, again, the axe handle is laid down, the mantle that he wore is laid down, and the waters part, and they go across. You have, Father Thomas mentions, when Elijah was, Naaman the Syrian was coming in. I mean, we mentioned this, that Elisha sent a message to Naaman, who had come from Syria, saying, I have this leprosy, I need to be healed. And he says, go wash in the Jordan. Naaman is taken aback. He's a nobleman. And he says, I really don't want to go in this dirty little trickle of a stream and wash. We have really nice rivers back in Syria. I didn't even have to come all this way. If all I got to do is wash in a river, I could have done that in other rivers that look nicer, that are clearer, that are, why do I got to do this? Naaman's servant said, look, if the prophet, you came all this way for the prophet to tell you what to do. If he told you to do some great thing, I don't know, climb the mountain with the 50-pound pack on your back and some ascetic thing to prove your determination and love for God, you'd have done it because it would have been big and impressive. He tells you to go, do this one little thing, but because it kind of makes you a little uncomfortable, that's a little too much, and you're gonna say no because of that. Naaman says, you're right. All right. So he goes and he washes, and he's clean. Again, the baptism in the Jordan is what cleanses this man, and we read this in Theophany too. For us, these are all foreshadowings. These are types. And Father Thomas makes the point that, what is it that, where is it that we receive the forgiveness of sins? Is it in any old way? No. It has to be the baptism of Christ. It has to be meeting him in the Jordan waters. This is where we are cleansed. Okay? And so the church holds this out and says, Christ came to the Jordan. And so, we have this very much importance with the Jordan River. But I would also like to add, in addition to what Father Thomas mentions in this chapter today, there's a fellow I know who told me one time a story of a priest that he heard give the sermon at Theophany. And it stuck with him, and it's stuck with me ever since. Anybody who hangs around long enough to hear Theophany sermons, I will more than likely repeat this over the year, because over the years I feel it's needed and a good word from this father. The gist of the homily was that, when Joshua came to the Jordan banks, the waters parted. When Elijah and Elisha came to the Jordan banks, those waters parted in victory. And yes, it showed us that, through the waters we pass through from death to life. And this is all well and good. But it's very interesting that when the Son of God himself, the creator of those waters, the one who himself parted those waters in the first place, when he comes to those waters to receive baptism, they do not part for him. He goes under and dies. He succumbs to the raging waters that the psalmist says, the waters have come up to my neck. The waters, the raging waters. The Lord all on high is mighty, mightier than the raging waters. Well, yes, the water gods of the ancient, Babylonians and the Assyrians, the victory over them in crossing over the Jordan and having power over the Red Sea and having power over the waters, Jonah and the whale, these powers over all the water gods, part of that is, very triumphalistic. That's the stuff we like. But, and sometimes in icons of the Theophany, you'll see the water gods like depicted like a Neptune sort of thing in the gods, like, or a merman or a mermaid, in the waters under the feet of Christ. It's saying like he is being destroyed and broken and defeated. Well, that's true. However, Christ, how does he trample down death? Not by his life, by his death. And then he bestows life on those in the tombs. He has to die. He has to submit to death, even death on a cross. He has to submit to humiliation. He has to submit to humility. The waters do not part for him. And we want the waters to part for us. We want to be able to control what we do, right? Maybe we're like Naaman. You know, we would do these great things for God, but I mean, let's say we're told to do these little things right now. Our lives have changed and we're given things to do that we don't like. Maybe, okay, I'll meddle. Maybe we don't want to wear a mask. I certainly don't. Maybe we really, really are frustrated by the restrictions on our lives, that we have to hold still and be, restricted and really, our options may be limited, but this may be what we're told to do. This may be our Jordan River. And we're called to simply go down, to submit for now to this little thing. It could be any number of things. But the reality is that, and this was the point that the priest made at the end, he says, when you follow Christ, when those who would follow Christ come after him, he is not promising the victory of the parted waters. He calls to himself a fellowship of the drowned. I love that phrase. That the people who would come to him have to be willing to understand that they may have to experience defeat. They may have to experience loss. In fact, our Christian history, today's the day that I'm recording this, the day of Daniel and the three holy youths. We have to have the understanding that God makes no promises and does no bargains. That we may have to, and if we follow Christ, we more than likely will have to experience some real drowning. And yet, this is part and parcel of what it means to be a Christian. That there are no guarantees of earthly victory or power over other people. That it may very well be that the way of the cross is weak. That the way of the cross is humbling and humiliating. Insecure. So let us understand that as Christ comes to the River Jordan, he bids us come and die, as it said. Let us understand that this, however it manifests in our lives, is what we are called to do, whether it's in the time of COVID or in some other season of our lives. That our frustrations, our limitations, our insecurities and our uncertainties, when we go down into whatever the waters are for us, we are not alone in those waters. And we bless the waters at Theophany and at baptism, that Christ would be made present in the waters. And so we go with him. But as Moses himself said, if you do not go with us, do not let us depart from this place. Well, we do not go alone. So let us remember that. God bless you all. This is Father David, and Lord willing, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.